the look on your face was priceless.
Yeah, I was just trying to see it.
Oh. And you can go from there. To 11.
It's reasonable, right? Because it's perfectly feels great to do that. It feels great. So I can see it, and then I just wait for it to finish. Setting off in my head. And just like all foxes, shielding them all. When you ask the question, I know you don't have a time, but
Do you have a number? Can it?
in the kitchen.
Hello, and welcome to my first poker video. This is pretty exciting. I love the game of poker, but I don't really play it too much, and I don't really get the opportunity to, record anything or produce anything, so this is a rare occurrence. It's by no means going to be my standard content, but that being said, today we're going to be recapping a session that I played on November the 14th. It was a home game hosted at a local pool club, and we had a blast. It was my first time playing in about 6 months, so it's safe to say I was a little bit rusty. And full disclosure, I'm by no means a professional player. I'd certainly consider myself a recreational player, but like all activities, I do like to study what I'm doing and try and improve at it. So this is the perfect way to do so. I failed to mention the fact that we were playing 1-3 with an optional $6 straddle, and that was on for about half the night. So the game was playing, relatively big. The maximum buy-in was 600, and that's exactly how much we bought in for. So the first notable hand comes up pretty early into the session. I have a player that I recognize from my games at the casino, and he's quite the action player. In this particular hand, we get an early position limp, and the cutoff raises to 15. We look down at ace-jack offsuit in the small blind and isolate him with a 3-bet to 55. I'm fully expecting the cutoff to continue with all of his hands, especially in position. He'd, relish the opportunity to stack me here. And we're playing pretty deep, 600 effective for both of us. So we go to a flop, and the flop is 987 rainbow. Not the best flop for myself, but I'm pretty much going to be continuing with range here. That's my general strategy, and I believe I bet 40 or 45. We'll go with 40 here into a pot of, a little over 100. And he quickly calls. So the turn is now a queen. I believe it brings a flush draw as well. And I'm almost done with the hand. I think, on this kind of board, he's got a lot more coverage than ourselves. Yeah, he's a very stubborn player, so I figure we'll just check give up here, and that's what we do on the turn. We check, and surprisingly he checks it back. The river is a jack, and I'm now contemplating my options, whether or not we can rep a value hand like ace 10, but I figure it's such a small portion of our range that I may as well be checking here. I'd probably be doing that with all my, ace queens, kings, aces, and any other value combinations that I have. So I check river, he checks back, and I show ace jack for second pair, and it's good. So we take that one down and start our session in the green. We actually never really dropped below 600 in this session, so it was smooth sailing for me the entire time, but that was just a reflection of how lucky I got this session. So for this next hand, there's definitely a pre-flop dynamic taking place here. The previous hand before this, we 3-bet ace 3 suited, small blind vest button, and got a fold pre-flop. And the very next hand, we happened to pick up pocket kings on the button, dream spot. So this hand's playing 136 and it folds around to the hijack, who opens to 20. We make it 55, opting to size down a little bit, being in position, and just trying to induce the hijack to spaz as well. That's also possible. And it folds around to the big blind, who actually picks up on this dynamic and cold fours to 175. But he actually only started the hand with 400 here, so I pretty much view him as pot committed. It folds back around to me and I take my time before jamming, and he goes deep into the tank. I think he tanked for 1 to 2 minutes, which in this table, in this game, was quite a long time. Everyone was playing really quickly, and eventually he opts for the fold. So pretty good result for us. You know, if he's got some sort of ace-high hand, we deny equity too, so perfectly fine taking this down pre-flop, and we move on to the next one. Alright, you've all been waiting for it, so without further ado, here is the biggest pot I've ever played. For this hand, we look down at pocket jacks and the hijack, and there's 2 early position limpers before us. We go ahead and make it 15. In hindsight, this feels a little bit small. I'm not sure if I'm recalling the pre-flop sizings accurately, but that's what I'm going to go with for now. And both the limpers call. So 3 ways to a flop, and that flop comes down jack 6-4 with 2 diamonds. They both check it over to me, and I want to size up a little bit here with a relatively wet board. I know we're blocking all the top pairs, but I still want to charge all the draws the maximum. We make it $40 to go, and both opponents call pretty quickly. The turn comes an offsuit 3, bringing in multiple straights, but it doesn't really deter me, so when my opponents check to me, we continue sizing up and make it 170 to go. The initial limper calls pretty quickly, and the second limper goes all in for $337. I verified with the dealer here that the action is still open, so if I want to re-raise, I can do so, and he confirms that. So I contemplate my options here, whether or not I want to flat or to raise to an amount that's not all in, or to simply go all in. At the end of the day, I figured that this hand, probably serves as an all in anyway. I'm playing 1200 effective with the other live opponent here, so quite a lot of money to play for. So, although we're losing to, a few combinations of straights, it's pretty unlikely he's going to have those hands. Plenty of other holdings that we can get value from. We go all in for 1190 effective, and he snap calls, which, was mildly concerning at first. I thought he might have had a straight. I did ask him if he wanted to run it twice, but he didn't really say anything. I wasn't sure. It kind of looked like he wanted to go once. And then I had to check with the host whether or not we could run it twice in a multi-way pot. I'm just like, whatever. Let's just run it once. The rib comes down and offsuit 5. The first all-in player shows 6-5 of diamonds for a combo draw that bricked. And the second player shows pocket 4s. So our jacks hold up here, and we scoop the largest pot that I've ever won in my life. Win or lose, I'm pretty stoic regardless, but for this, when I pulled out my camera to record, my hand was actually shaking a little bit, so I definitely felt the magnitude of this pot here. Alrighty, for our last hand, we pick up pocket kings once again under the gun +1. I know what you're thinking, look, you just seem to be a card rack, all your highlight hands are premium hands, but that just happened to be the way it played out this session. We were raising pretty much like every button and a bunch of speculative holdings too, but all the big pots I played, I just seemed to have it, so it's just a rare anomaly of this session. That being said, we're under the gun +1 and we opened kings to $10. There's no straddle on it, folds all the way down to the big blind, who 3-bets to $50. The big blind's actually a friend of mine who's pretty aware of my game, and I in turn his, and typically I would be 4-betting in this spot, but I feel like that 4-bet would be so face up. I mix in very few 4-bet bluffs into my range. I should be mixing in a few more, like ace-5 suited, but because I'm not balancing my 4-betting range enough, I think that flatting here can have some merit at times. We can play our hand a little bit deceptively, and that's what I opted to do. So we go to a flop, and the flop is 7-4 deuce with a flush draw. The big blind continues for $35, and we call. The turn is a beautiful card. It's an offsuit king, giving us the nuts at this point in time, and the big blind now sizes up, making it $140 to go. So our two options are between flatting and raising. I don't really think that there's much sense in raising. If he has some sort of value hand, maybe 8s through queens, I wouldn't really expect him to be continuing on the turn here. Given the range of hands that we can have in a 3-bet pot. So I think he's more likely to be bluffing here, and if he is, we want a flat call to give him the opportunity to bluff rivers. So that was my intention here, and we go ahead and call on the turn. The river comes in offsuit 3, and the big blind now checks. We have an obvious value bet. I make a 230 to go and the big blind goes into the tank and begrudgingly folds. Later on he confirmed he had ace high, so I kind of think my line makes sense in hindsight to try and induce more bluffs. But nonetheless, we take this one down and we're just scooping all the big pots. Bought into the game for 600 and cashed out for 25.90, just shy of a $2,000 profit, so really succession, definitely one of my best in the last couple of years. So that's going to conclude the recap. I assure you that anyone who picked up the hole cards that I did would have ran equally well. It didn't take a genius to play these hands. That being said, look, I've had a lot of fun in this session and I had a lot of fun making this video too, so I'm going to be sure to do so in the future. Future videos will likely include me being in torturous spots, playing speculative holdings, and it'll be good to get an insight into hands that I'm losing as well. So look forward to that. But that's only if you enjoy these kind of videos. So if you do enjoy the poker content, please like and subscribe and let me know in the comments what you want to see specifically. I know my setup's a little bit strange. There's some poker replayer software that I could use that may make this a little bit more elegant, and I'll try and record more whole cam footage too. So those are some things I'm going to work on for the next one. But that's going to be all for now, so laters.